women would be in charge. Women in charge creates a cooperative instead of a competitive society. The men could still be the men. We would just be heard and our ideas would be heard. My big personal goal is help a million women create financial freedom. Because when that happens,
Halle, welcome to Resilient Entrepreneurs. We're super excited to have you here today to have a fantastic conversation about, I don't know, maybe a little bit about money. I think there's some coaching we've been chatting about off camera. We are ready to go, and we are going to start with my nice, big, fat, juicy question. And that is, if I were to hand you a magic wand today, what change would you make in the world?
I'm probably going to give you, thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here. I'm probably going to give you one of the biggest things that you've ever heard. Are you ready?
Bring it, bring it.
Women would be in charge. Because in societies where there is a matriarchy and not a patriarchy, there are some ancient societies where there are no weapons found in like the layers of silt that we all dissolve into, and culturally there have been societies where there's been no war. And I think that, unless they're trained that way, and there are women in this world today who are being trained that way, women do not make babies to bury them. Women do not make babies to send them off to be soldiers. And that's not what women want. So I believe that women in charge creates a cooperative instead of a competitive society. And in cooperation, we get things like negotiation, we get things like compromise. And then there's a lot of people who have started saying, can we change the hierarchy of what's going on in the world so that instead of us chasing money all the time, I mean, war is committed for money, genocide has been committed for money, certainly murder and robbery all the time get committed for money. So could we change that? And if we did change it, that hierarchy of the planet first, the community second, and then each people's individual needs third, would we have could the world change? Could we reverse climate change and things like that? We didn't think that we could, but the pandemic showed us how fast the climate, for example, could normalize. So I think that it's a matter of us making this choice. So I think the more we talk about it, the more we say, like, if women ran things, what would that look like? How would that show up? That's really what I see.
Halle for Prime Minister. Let's do this.
Let's just dive right in, because that was a good one to start with.
That was a
Let's
great
just do
one.
this.
Yeah.
And the best part
my
is,
God.
if women were in charge, we wouldn't try to like put the men down or imprison them or whatever. Like, the men could still be the men. We would just be heard and our ideas would be heard. If you were to look, my personal Facebook page does this more than any of my business accounts, but if you were to look at my personal Facebook page, you would see so many women from history that we're just discovering right now, who did things, who ran things, who lived inside of a complete man's world and succeeded and made the world a better place. So many women who invented things, so many women who saved lives, who were so capable. And yet we're being told at the time, you can't do this. It's not legal for you to do this. You're not allowed to do this. Your husband or your daddy didn't tell you it's okay. It's not okay. And all of that is just crap. It's just all conditioning. So I really can't wait for a world where women have their own money. And right now, my big personal goal is help a million women create financial freedom. Because when that happens, most women put most of their money back into their own family, their own community, their village, as I like to call it. And that means that there's this huge trickle down effect that helps everybody. And so that's why I think women need to be in charge, because everybody would be uplifted in that case, including the men.
Yeah, you make a really good point there, especially the connection to the money making the difference in power, right? So having money can equal power. And it was for how many hundreds of thousands of years did women not have any money and therefore no power? But that shift has changed.
Yeah.
in our generation, in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And it's increasing, but there's still challenges for women to receive money, to get backing, to get financial investing, to be educated on financial investing and all these things too. So tell us how you help and how you advise.
Yeah, everything you just said is most of my coaching practice because congratulations ladies, we've just passed the 51st anniversary of women having access to their own credit cards, their own bank accounts, and their own mortgages. 51 years. Oh, I'm sorry, you're in Canada. I think it's not even 50 years yet. Like, we're getting there. Like, it'll be 50 years very soon. But Vicki, are you in England? Oh no, I'm sorry, I think it's been like just around like almost 50 years for you ladies. It's so sad. Like, you've got 3,000 years here and you've got 50 years, tiny little 50 years here. So that to me is so heartbreaking. And, I've been running businesses. I'm a serial founder, and I started my first company when I was a small child, an infant practically. And that was 35 years ago. And it was really interesting to see. Like, I remember these men from this venture capital company coming in, and they were like, "We want to see the president." And I was like, "Well, that's me." And I was wearing like a leotard and jeans, and they had their business suits on. And I remember they looked me up and down, and they were like, "Okay." But I could literally see them like, "You're this little chippy. Like, what do you have? Like, what do you have to offer?" Meanwhile, we're like doing all this cutting edge work, and I'm the business person behind every structure and every system and everything that we had, because that was what was required to run the company, not because I knew what I was doing. I didn't. I like to say that my first company was going to business school, film school, and the School of Hard Knocks all at the same time. So, but at that time, venture capital was giving, by the way, we did not have an appointment with those men. They walked into the office like sight unseen, because we were well known enough that people like would just come in and offer us money like every week. It was crazy. The salad days. Anyway, so at that time, women were being given 1% of venture capital. It's 3.5 decades later. Any guesses as to what the percentage is now of venture capital for women? Oh, girls, I love you. You're so well informed. Yes. So if you're just listening to this, so we've got a 2% and a 3%. It's actually it's 3%. So Vicki, you win the prize. So Vicki, I was planning on gifting a little bit of personal private coaching to one of you, and you won. So it'll be you. Yes, there you go. So
I'm
so
all in.
3% now, 3.5 decades later. We have a long way to go, ladies. Yes, it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a conversation that is not unfamiliar to our audience, because it does raise its ugly head on this podcast quite regularly from various guests from various angles. This VC funding, venture capital funding, being 3% of women founders. And we've asked the question, what do we do about it? We've had the answers, some answers. We need to put ourselves out there more. I think what we've ultimately arrived at so far in attempting to solve this global complex problem is that more women need to make the decisions to support more women. I think that's it simplified. What do you reckon?
It's both of those things, but I think that the reason for it, I no longer think that it's men getting in the way. I don't think that that's true anymore. It was true when I was first running my first company, but I just don't see that as the truth anymore. Now I see it more like women come along, and it's like a woman is walking in a straight line, and she hears that there's somebody coming up behind her on her left. So she's like, "Oh, let me get out of the way so that this person can pass." Well, the person who's trying to pass you is this man. And the man is like, "That's my goal. That's my goal. That's my goal. That's my goal." He's not even noticing the woman. The woman's intuition kicks in. Her ears kick in. She's paying attention, and she's paying attention to her whole community, right? Because that's her job. So in that moment, she sees the guy coming through. She hears him. Then she sees him. And then she's like, "Let me get out of the way. And by the way, did you want some of my water? Because you're walking faster than I am, and you might need that." Meanwhile, the guy gets to the finish line first, and there's only one thing at the end of that finish line. That's our problem. That's what I think is our problem. Like, we are conditioned to that there's no I in team. I don't think, go up to any man and say that. And he's like, what are you talking about? But women are told that all the time. So I think it's letting women's voices be heard and letting women's ideas be heard more. And then for the women, it's a matter, okay, this is an HR stat. When I heard it, I was like floored. A woman will not put her name in or her resume in for a position unless she feels that she's 80 to 90% qualified, and the guy's doing it at 30 or 40%. So, but to me, that statistic, y'all have heard this before, obviously. So to me, that statistic is sad, because it's the woman is self-selecting away. And the thing that I think is the woman can self-select toward, because her ideas and her concepts are valuable. And listen, if you're listening to this podcast right now and you're going, well, what can I do? You can decide that, yes, there have been 2,000 covers of the song Luck Be a Lady, for example. This is something I teach in one of my programs. Luck Be a Lady's been covered 2,000 times. It's been covered by Barbra Streisand, Lady Gaga, Frank Sinatra. And yet there are still covers of that song being made. Why? Because it's your voice, which is unique. Lady Gaga surely was like, well, Barbara did it. I can't hold a candle to. No, she was like, let me get out there and do my version, because, I've got my pipes, not her pipes. That's how we need to be with our own ideas. Because if all we did was say what's possible instead of this is not possible, we would start to shift that significantly. So that's what I'd like to see us saying, is our voices are important. Our ideas are important.
Yeah. And to adopt a little bit of that risk taking. We heard from another guest recently, is one of my favorite new quotes. I'm going to repeat it over and over, is that boys are taught to be brave while girls are taught to be perfect. Right?
Yep.
And exactly what you're just saying about the women wanting to be 80 or 90% qualified for a job before applying, there's that perfection coming in. Am I perfect? Am I good enough? Am I enough for this position? Versus a man going, oh, I like that position. Yeah, I'm just going to go for it anyway. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. More willing to take the risk in the first place.
You're absolutely right. And I am enough is the core thing. People always ask me, like, what's at the bottom of all the coaching work I do? It's making you enough, because that's the core thing underneath everything. And then on top of that is, I'm not, I don't have the right to be seen. I don't have the right to be heard, because it's not safe. And that, I think, comes from legacy, ancestral teachings. And if you believe in past lives, I would say it comes from past lives. Because it used to be, when you spoke up, you got burned at the stake. You got, died in a number of, a myriad of lovely ways. So it's just now that we're in a generation where it's safe to have our voices. It's safe to have our thoughts. But here, Laura, I'll give you my bumper sticker coaching. If it's short enough to fit on a bumper sticker, you'll remember it in an emergency. That's why it's called bumper sticker coaching. And here's bumper sticker coaching to fix imposter syndrome, which is the thing where the women feel they're not perfect because they're comparing themselves all the time. Vicki's like, I'm writing this down. Okay, so here's the bumper sticker coaching. Ready? Okay. Some of that for me, please. That's the whole thing. Some of that for me, please. So here's what happens. I see Vicki and I go, Vicki has very successful experiences. Look at her. She's a professional podcaster. Look at her credentials. Vicki has that and I don't. Well, what did you just do? You just told the universe, God, whatever the creative force is that you are impressing your thoughts onto, that can bring you every one of your desires. You just told that energy that your desire was, Vicki has that and I don't. Because God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, is, I like to say, is totally literal and has no sense of humor. So if you say the thing you don't want, spirit, God, the universe is like, okay, because that's what you just asked for. So I just said, Vicki has that and I don't. So let me bring you more of not that thing that Vicki has that you just asked for not wanting, right? That's exactly the reverse, right? Then the expression is that, that a lot of times we say that prayer is, that worry is prayer for the things that you don't desire, right? But I think a lot of prayer is stated incorrectly, because prayer is usually beseeching something from the outside for something that we desire. And what happens is we fall into what I call the lack gap. So the lack gap is, I have this thing, therefore I want this thing, therefore I don't have this thing. So I want this thing, I don't have this thing. So this thing is over there and I'm over here, right? Two blondes are standing on opposite sides of the river. One blonde yells over to the other one, "How do I get to the other side?" The other blonde on the other side of the river yells back, "You're already there." It's my favorite existential joke. But
I love it, and I'm glad you're both redheads.
yeah, exactly. No, I heard it as a blonde joke, and so I always tell it as a blonde joke, but I think it's the best existential joke ever, because it's awesome. True. We are already there. And when we are there, we close the lack gap completely. And then Vicki has that thing, some of that for me, please. That closes the gap immediately. Oh, Vicki has this thing. Look, Vicki is the way shower for me. Look what's possible for me. Yay, Vicki. Yay, Vicki. Vicki's showing me this. I could have this too. I got so excited about this thing I didn't have because I saw that I could have it. That's closing the lack gap immediately. And it kills imposter syndrome, like kills it dead. It's amazing.
I want to take you to another level. This is awesome. I love it. Can we go deeper? Is it okay with you if we go deeper?
I want to go all the way deep. Yes, let's get in there.
Let's do it. Okay. So let's use that example. And I might say that, Halle. I might say some of that for me, please. I see and I'm inspired by what someone else has, and now I can see what's possible for me. And yet, there's a rumble inside of me that goes, "Ooh, no, babe, that's not for you."
I love that. I love that. Most of us have that still small voice that says we can do incredible things. And then we have, I like to call it our mother's voice, telling us what we can't do. It's not always your mom, but for a lot of people it is, right? Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, I saw her speak years ago, and she told a story about this horrible roommate she had in college who was always like, "Oh my God, you're so fat. Why are you even leaving the house? You're going on a date? Who wants to date you? Ew." And finally she was like, I had to kick the roommate out because the roommate was so horrible, but it was really hard to do because the roommate was in my head. And, everybody laughed, but, we all like totally related, right? So I'm going to give you another piece of bumper sticker coaching. Are you ready? You tell your mind, "Thank you for sharing." Just write that down. Thank you for sharing. And here's why this is so. Remember, by the way, also, here's more bumper sticker coaching. Simple and easy are not the same things. And the two most dangerous words in the English language are "I know." So when your brain goes, "I know," that's when you want, like, aha. You think you know, but there's a difference between knowing in your mind and knowing on your heart. So when you know on your heart, you're healed. When you know on your mind, you could torture yourself over and over again. But here's why "thank you for sharing" works. It's so simple, so simple. Simple and easy are not the same thing. Simple means you're going to remember it in that emergency situation. Easy means you're going to do it. And simple and easy are not the same thing. So here's the incentive to do it. Your mind has been battering at the door for years and years and years. However old you are, minus like 5 years. That's usually what it is for people. So, right. So most of us, it's, 40 years, 50 years, 60 years, whatever. So in this time, your brain is like, "Listen to me. I'm just trying to protect you. I'm just trying to help you." Help means keep you exactly where you are, because that means you're going to be safe. Wherever you are now is safe, right? We should definitely stay there where it's safe. Safe equals stuck. So, and we know this is true because women have been killed rather than leave abusive spouses. So your brain will lie to you in an effort to protect you. All right. So we have to circumvent the brain, but shut up, which is what we tell the brain all the time, or stop, or leave me the F alone. This is not useful. Your brain really is just trying to help and just trying to protect you. So the way to shift it is you say, thank you for sharing. Not like, thank you for sharing, talk to the hand, but thank you for sharing. Like, I hear you, and I acknowledge you. Not I listened to you, not I did what you said, but I hear you and I acknowledge you. When you do that, your brain goes, big exhale. It heard me. And she heard me. And now in that space, you can go do whatever you want, including the new thing that you were drawn to in the first place that your brain just told you not to do. And you're like, thank you for sharing. And your brain no longer is like, I have to keep telling her over and over and over again because she's not listening. I'm outside the door. You've opened the door. And when that happens, your brain can say, oh, she's heard me. Your brain does not need you to obey. Your brain needs to know that it's been heard. And then after that, you have this window of space. It could be 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. But guess what? It gets longer and longer, that space, every time you say thank you for sharing. And like the second time I worked on this with a client, because I get this stuff downloaded and then I just use it in my, it's like another tool for my toolbox when I coach. So the second time I did this with a client, he called me like 3 days later and I said, how's it going? You've been saying thank you for sharing. How's it going? And he goes, I don't know what to do. I said, okay, what's the problem? And he goes, no, I don't know what to do with all my spare time. His brain had shut up completely after like 3 days. And he was calling me like, cause he had nothing going on in his head and it was just quiet in there and he wasn't sure what to do with all his spare time. So I thought that was a really great testimonial.
Love that. Peace, inner peace.
So Vicki,
Welcome.
will you commit to saying thank you for sharing to your brain when your brain wants to monkey mind chatter at you?
I think that the whole this is not for you, babe. That's for other people. So there's a couple of things that goes on there. One of it, I believe, is a tribal cycle pattern. So in simple terms, that means that's my mother's voice, right? Or the equivalent of. That's what I grew up believing, that some stuff is for other people and some stuff is for us. Subconsciously. And then there's the other piece about, we talked about earlier, am I good enough? So some of that for me, please, sounds inspiring and yeah. And then the body arcs up and goes, whew, not safe. Not safe.
Yeah. So some of this is longer coaching work, but what I will say is this. There's clearing work that you can do to teach yourself that it's safe. But I'm starting to do some kinesthetic work, so physical body work. So for example, there's right at the base of your ear, there's like a little soft spot. Girls, put your fingers right here at the soft spot behind your ears, right? So you just twirl that soft spot, just rub for like 20 seconds, right? And then go to the opposite direction for 20 seconds. And that just calms your vagus nerve. And there's a lot of stuff online. Yeah, like I got that off of TikTok. I seriously did. But there's a lot of people giving away very simple, look, Vicki's like, oh, very simple tools. But here's something else. And I discovered this for myself years ago that I thought was so helpful. Put your hand on your forehead. Just put your hand right here, like that, on your forehead. There's this very calming thing. Just close your eyes for a second and just sit for 5 seconds with your hand completely on your forehead. And there's this calming thing that happens when we do this. It's a soothing technique from when we were kids. Before your mother got on your last delicate nerve, your mother put her hand on your forehead to make sure you didn't have a fever and to make you feel better. And so you can soothe yourself. And the thing is that the more you can be in your body and feel that that's safe, the better. So there's a bunch of different tools. There's a bunch of different acupressure points. I follow like 3 different acupressure people on Instagram, and I'm constantly like interested in what they're doing. I'm starting to do a lot of face yoga, which is really fun, but also the idea that like to calm your vagus nerve, which is that's where the fight or flight response lives, is very helpful. And to combine energetic work with physical kinesthetic work with affirmations. Because so what people are always asking me, like, well, what do you do to like fix stuff? And I call this working out at the spiritual gym. It's like you do a routine that gives you structure and that gives you discipline, and then you follow that routine every day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Something that you read, the meditation that you do, the journaling that you do, the piece of music that you listen to, and when something that you read, I mean, like, people read the Bible, or they read, like, a page out of a Joe Dispenza book about quantum physics. Take your pick. Like, it's whatever appeals to you. But the idea is that you're learning, you're growing, and you're expanding, and you're doing it with these very simple tools, because you can't be like, put your left elbow in and your right elbow out and turn yourself around and do the hokey pokey. It's too much. Like, we're so busy, we can barely have time to grab a cup of coffee during the day. So doing something when you first get out of bed in the morning, and doing that thing for 5 minutes, and calming your vagus nerve, both right when you wake up and right before you go to sleep, that can be immensely helpful, because we're also in constant fight or flight mode with everything. And I'm going to bring this conversation back to money. There's so much around money that involves power. And do we own our power? And so when we can come from a core base of, hell yes, I own my own power, and it's safe to own my own power, now we can start making decisions. But if we come from a place that is not, I worked out at the spiritual gym, and we're all like energetically kind of just this mishmash, we're not going to be able to make good decisions. We're not going to be able to make decisions that are aligned with our greatest good and the future that we desire, which hopefully is a very wealthy one.
Yeah. Let's talk about wealthiness and worthiness, because I think that they go so hand in hand. And I don't think people think wealthy and they think greed. They think billionaires who just want to control the world and own everything and don't give back. But what is wealthy to you? What's your mindset around that?
That's such a beautiful, beautiful question. Like I said at the beginning that I want to help 1 million women create financial freedom. I was just starting to play with that language, and I was in a seminar where I got to introduce myself for a minute, and then I gave a gift, and I said that I wanted to help women join the 1% net worth, which is much harder to do than to join the 1% of income earners. And it did not resonate for anybody. There were like 5 people, okay, 9 people, whatever, but not a lot of people downloaded my wonderful gift, because there's this stigma, like, you don't want to be in the 1%. Like, we've had rallies against the 1%. But
Right.
so here's the thing. I'm going to start with the absolute baseline for money. It's energy. It's just energy. That's all that it is. Look, I have $100 bill right here in my desk, right here in my desk. I'm going to give you this $100 bill. Look, it looks perfect, right? If I give you this $100 bill, you give me $100 worth of stuff, you're not. Why? Because the paper's gold instead of green and white. Well, why not? Why wouldn't, look, it looks perfect. It's identical to it. It's not real. Well, what's real? Real money is paper, because we say it is. And 200 years ago or whatever, when we introduced paper as a way of exchanging IOUs as opposed to coinage, there was this huge backlash, because people didn't trust the paper that was the promise to pay, and there were a lot of forgeries and all this other stuff. So money is the greatest story ever told, because it's the one we all agree on, right? So once we realize that it's just energy, we can stop giving it full power over us. All it is the energetic exchange, right? Where we get the big when it comes to money is when we have abundance. And we have that usually in some area of our lives. An abundance of love, an abundance of health, an abundance of leaves on the tree outside, right? It exists everywhere in nature. Everywhere in nature is abundant. The nature's job is to be abundant, right? No tree ever said, okay, that's enough apples for now. And if I keep making more apples, the tree next door, it's not going to have all its apples this season. So no, I'm just going to stop that's not how it works, right? So we've told ourselves not just stories, but these lies about what the deal is with money and how money is related to power and greed and all of that stuff. So my theory is more bumper sticker coaching. If you're going to tell yourself a lie, why not make it a beautiful lie instead of an ugly lie? Tell yourself the beautiful lie. So tell yourself the lie of, if I see abundance everywhere and I'm part of everything everywhere, then I can have as much abundance as I desire. Stop using words that don't support you. If you have a word, like, here's a good gauge. Instead of saying the word money in regards to something like money is the root of all evil, for example, which, by the way, the Bible does not say. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. And really, it's the love and worship of money, right? That's the root of all evil, according to the Bible. So instead of you saying the word money in that sentence, let's rephrase. Let's say the word pizza instead. So pizza, the love of pizza is the root of all evil. It takes the onus out of the phrase. So you're looking for places where you can go neutral or positive instead of negative. And you girls have been talking earlier about the different phrases that people say about money that is, that's bad. Those are phrases, 3, 4 of 50 phrases that I think I've seen a list of 75 was the most phrases that we could possibly learn that would be not helpful, right? So it's not safe for me to have money, or money doesn't grow on trees, or other money's for other people. Vicki was just saying that earlier, money's for other people, not for me. So whatever your phrases are, you've got to bring them to neutral and reframe them in a way where you can say it and have it not have a charge around it, not be a trigger. Because Laura, you're going to be triggered by different words than Vicki is. And then Vicki, you're going to be triggered by different words than I'm triggered by. And so it's not automatic that we're triggered by the words. Sometimes we're not triggered at all. And so it's a matter of getting to neutral or to positive with everything. And now it's just a matter of playing with it so that it doesn't feel like it has a charge around it anymore. Pizza is the root of all evil. We're yeah, that's stupid. So now you can start to almost make fun of it. I think that we are guilty as a population of hoarding resources. The idea that we're in the middle of a giant space race between 2 billionaires building giant penises in the sky rather than helping, children in poverty or with school lunches or, their health care or whatever. It's just terrifying to me. But again, let's go back to the very first thing. Let's put the women in charge. Look what Mackenzie, I can't remember her last name, ex-Mrs. Bezos, said, what did she do with all of her Jeff Bezos money? She went out and spent it in a philanthropic sense. And she did it by really spending all of his money as quickly as possible. She's trying to give it away, and she doesn't even care if she's giving it away anonymously. Mackenzie Scott. I wanted to look her up because she's my shero. I think what the work she's doing is so important, because she's showing women that when you have a lot of money, you can do so much good in the world. And I think that that's, the more we see examples of money being used for purpose, money being used for good. And if you're a woman and you're listening to this conversation and you're thinking, I don't know, I don't think it's right to have more than you can consume. I don't think it's right if I have if I grow too many apples, the person next to me isn't going to have enough apples, right? Two things. One is it's not pie. It's not like you have a slice of pie, Vicki has a slice of pie, Laura has a slice of pie, Halle has a slice of pie. We ate all our pie, we don't get any more. It's not like that. Everybody gets their own pie. Everyone. And your pie is so big that you cannot possibly eat all your pie in one lifetime. And Laura's pie, Vicki's pie, Hallie's pie, they have nothing to do with each other. It's like the apple tree going, I can't produce more apples because the other tree next to me might not get enough. That we know that we hear that, we go, well, that's really silly. So it's the same thing. Everybody's got their own pie. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is we can use our money. We can become very, very wealthy and use our money the way Mackenzie Scott is using her money, for good. We can use it for purpose. We can use it for assisting our village, our tribe, and then when we have enough money, the world. But if every woman entrepreneur that was capable of it just got some money and shared it the way that she tends to, the world would already be a much, much better place. There are so many examples now of women being given microloans. And I went with, I don't know if either of you know or any of your listeners know Cynthia Kersey, but I've been lucky enough to get to help bring some of her best donors for the Unstoppable Foundation to Kenya, where she is building Unstoppable Foundation through Cynthia's vision is building latrines and schools. And you need the latrines because the women were walking 8 hours each way to get water. And you need the latrines because the girls were being sent home when they started getting their periods. There was no place to wash. There was no place to change. There was no place for privacy. And so the girls were leaving school at 10, 11, 12 years old, being married off and disappearing into the village culture. Now the girls are going to school, and I got to witness the women who were being given these microloans, growing their vegetables, selling their vegetables. I got to see women who had collected enough money that they were like, and now we're opening a hotel. I was just like mind blowing to see the effect on the society. And the men were standing up and they were saying, I can pay my child's school fees. The parents kept saying over and over again, I can pay my child's school fees. I finally pulled one of the Unstoppable Foundation staff aside. I said, how much are these school fees? They were like $5 for like a half a year or something. I mean, it was crazy small amounts of money, but they didn't have it. And they didn't have those resources. And so now through the Unstoppable Foundation's work, there are these entire communities that are able to survive and thrive. And that's the work that women are doing in the world. It's like you make the microloan and then the women are able to pay it back with interest. And yeah, so there are ways to shift a lot of money into purpose-filled things. And if anybody's interested in this material, there's a book called The Soul of Money by Lynn, with an E on the end, Lynn Twist. And she's worked with billionaires doing philanthropical work. And she's also worked with two different kinds of investments. The kind where women will, where people will make a donation to an impoverished community, and the kind where people will teach the impoverished community and leave. And the difference is, in the first case, when they're given all the money, they go back to their poverty level almost as quickly as they started. And when they're taught with dignity and raised up through education, their community is changed forever. So I think those are our keys, is to educate and to earn money knowing that we're earning as much as possible, because that means we can give back in a way that somebody like Mackenzie Scott is showing us is possible.
Gosh, so many golden takeaways from all of this. And so many. And yet, I think the one thing that really, it's like landed with me is that we each have a pie that is so big, a lifetime wouldn't be enough to use it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the endless energy of wealth and money itself, because I think probably 99.9% of people, in entrepreneurs included, think that money is a limited resource. I think we just grow up being trained that money is a limited resource, and to think of it as an unlimited resource is quite a shift. And I think that's going to support entrepreneurs everywhere, because I came into this conversation with some concept that I have a ceiling around how much I can earn, whether it's self-worth, whether it's safe. I don't know, whatever that story is. And yet it feels like there's this I can only go so far, right? And then I have to break through it to get to the next level. And I feel like that's the entrepreneurial game. But what if it wasn't? What if there was no ceiling? What if that ceiling's just a big imaginary made up lie, as you described?
Juicy. That's amazing. I literally will tell people that I specialize in helping women remove their money ceilings. And I have a fun story about this. I had a woman come to me, this is a few years ago, and she was like, I can make $500,000 a year, period, the end. And that's all there is to it. And I was like, is there a possibility that you could be wrong? She's like, nope. Now, the least coachable person is the person who doesn't think it's possible. But the back door, the way around this is, would you be okay if I knew that it was possible? Would you believe that I believed that it was possible for you? Oh, yeah, she could believe that. So we worked together for probably a month. And because I knew her, I did something I'd never done, like not since like maybe my first year of coaching. She wanted a money back guarantee. Like she was that afraid that it wasn't going to work. And finally I was like, whatever, fine. You can, yes, I'll give you a money back guarantee. So within that first 30 days, the fourth session that we did together, it just cracked wide open, and she knew all of a sudden that everything you just said, Vicki, which was so beautiful about the fact that it's just a lie, it's just a story that we're telling ourselves. She just cracked wide open, and the next year she made over $1 million and paid off her house and was like so happy, and paid off her dream home, in fact. So this is such a beautiful shift energetically when you realize what you just realized, that the money ceiling is a lie. I have an exercise that it's, again, something that I downloaded a few years ago, that I call a wealth blanket. And the idea of it is to literally, the exercise is just to expand your money ceiling, because you wrap yourself in a new belief around with this blanket of wealth. And once the blanket of wealth comes around you, you're like, oh, of course. And so people will go, I usually make people start with the biggest amount of money that they think they can make in a year, and then we double it. And then I check in, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how possible is this? And I want people to start at like no more than a 3 or a 4, and we'll get them to a 9 or a 10 in like 5 minutes. It's crazy how beautiful it is. And then once you feel yourself doing it, then your brain's like, well, okay, fine. Yeah, okay, I can do this. Yeah, it's because it starts to feel safe, right? So you do the wealth blanket exercise, and then you feel safe. And when you feel safe, then you can start to make that change and make that happen.
It sounds amazing. I want to talk for hours. And we're not going to. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the web address for halleeavelyn.com in.
Actually, if it's okay, I would like to gift everybody something. Is that all right?
Oh, absolutely.
Amazing. Of course.
So people can go to Halle Money, HALLE, HalleMoney.com, and you can pick up the top 10 secrets every woman needs to know about wealth. So that is my gift to you.
Thank you.
And then if anybody's interested, I have just written a new book, my fifth book, which is called The Passive Income Power Plan: 108 Ways to Make Money While You Sleep. And so if you're interested in getting the passive income power plan and the freebies that you can get when you get the book, and get started with your first passive income stream or your next passive income stream, you can go to hallewealth.com. So those are the two URLs that you want to share with your listeners: hallemoney.com for the gift and hallewealth.com for the book.
Amazing. Thank you. And 5 books. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is to be congratulated. That is a big deal. That is something to celebrate for sure. Not an easy endeavor to take on one book, and you've done 5. And thank you for that gift that you've given the world just by sharing those. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And I was just going to wrap up by saying how important it is to change the narrative, for us. And landing on the fact that you've written books is changing the narrative in itself. So thank you. Thank you for the gifts. Thank you for that. Thank you for this conversation. And let's work on how we change our money narratives, how we change the stories we tell ourselves, how we change how we feel. And I love that you're a coach, and I'm sure people can come to you and learn from you and grow in your coaching practice as well. So check out Halle. She has so much to offer. Halle, you're the best. I think we're going to need a part 2 of this conversation.
I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. We need to talk about money more as women. I think it's one of those things we don't talk about a lot. We talk about a lot of other things in our lives. We don't often talk about money. It tends to be a bit of a taboo subject, and it's time to change that. Having these helps us all to grow. So, Halle, thank you. It's been an amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, both of you. You're lovely. Thank you.